Hi, my name is Howard Garcia. This is Bethany Valenzuela, Cole Wright, and Kyle Hinton.
The question that we decided to go with is, what were the most crucial catalysts of the Israel-Palestine conflict, and what global consequences were observed?
So before we start, I wanted to give some context. The current issue began with Jewish immigration to Palestine, coming as a result of Aliyah, a basic principle of Zionism in which the Jewish people returned to the Holy Land of Israel. Waves of immigrants would arrive each year, mostly as a result of the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe, most notably the 250,000 Jews fleeing the rise of Nazism in Germany. As the Jewish population continued to rise, so did the social and political tensions. In 1948, the Arab-Israeli war was fought as a result of the strain between the two states. Through the end of the war, Israel had gained more territory than the UN had given them in the partition of 1947. This left Palestine reeling. As a result of this, 700,000 Palestinians were displaced, although there were also 800,000 Jewish peoples that had left their countries in Arab origins as a result of fears coming from the outcome of the war. Later on, in the 50s and 60s, violent strings of terrorist attacks became very common, although this did not leave out casualties from militaries of both governments. Six-Day War in 1967 further complicated things, as Israel would launch a preemptive strike against the surrounding Arab countries and gain more territory. This began intra-fighting between Arab countries, furthering the loss of life in Palestine. In the 1970s through the 1990s, a string of violent terrorist attacks stemming from mainly Palestine, who had promised to end terrorism in 1993 in an attempt to negotiate peace. In an attempt to negotiate a peace process known as the Oslo Accords, which had been taking place since 1993 but failed in 2000, as it failed to satisfy. Our war has broken out once again between Israel and Palestine and has continued up to the present day.
I focused on the political aspect of the Israel-Palestine conflict and the countries involved and why they were involved. So first we have the United States. So the United States has continued to support Israel over the years, and our country is now being politically divided on who we should support. Democrats have openly supported Palestine recently, while Republicans have stayed supporting Israel. Our experts aren't sure why we continue to support Israel, but Zach Beauchamp, an expert on foreign policy and relations for Vox, suggests that a common interest in fighting jihadism ties America to Israel, while he also suggests that it could be that Israel is seen as a key buffer against Soviet influence in the Middle East during the Cold War, and we've kept relations with them since. Regardless of why, it has been expensive, and according to Vox, it's estimated that around $118 billion have been invested in Israel, and it is estimated that is around $3 billion per year nowadays. So next up we have Russia. Israel is believed by many experts that Russia is the most interesting cooperation to them. Israel has, mostly because of Russia's global market and fossil fuels, as well as Russia's influence that could moderate the anti-Israel opinion that is growing in the region. Next up we have China. So China has the most interesting global market to any country. So Israel has, the trade volume between China and Israel has grown to around $10 billion. Finally we have India. So India has recently started to support Israel, but the country, like the US, is still politically divided because India has a population of over 150 Muslims who have remained pro-Palestinian, so India is unsure whether they want to continue to support Israel, but they're slowly trying to add to it. Some notable countries that support Palestine and recognize it as a state are Iceland and Sweden. Those are the only two Western countries, and many Middle Eastern countries have supported Palestine as well.
So, as Harold said before, one of the main cultural developments of the Israel-Palestinian conflict can definitely be the creation of Zionism. And what Zionism is it's the idea that Jewish people have created that Judaism can be both a nationality and a culture. So Through this, we can see that Zionism has created many different implications, such as the Jewish people migrating to Israel, as well as in present day, the development of a Jewish-ran government, as well as the protection of the Jewish people in like a Jewish society. So, due to the fact that Israel is mainly populated with Jewish people and also with a Jewish government, we can see that many Jewish people receive more of the benefits due to Zionism, and Palestinians do not receive these benefits. For an example, a Jewish person can go to Israel and become an Israeli citizen, while Palestinians cannot do that. As long as these benefits, Palestinians face many cultural oppression and social outcasting in places such as the West Bank and Gaza. And due to this oppression of the Palestinians, according to a BBC poll, Israel is has the fourth most mainly negative connotations linked to it, just behind North Korea, Pakistan, and Iran. And these negative connotations include such things as terrorist attacks and the subjugation of people, as well as ideas such as that.
Okay, in addition to the other causes that my colleagues have mentioned, another crucial catalyst of the Israel-Palestine conflict were the ethical obligations felt on part of the United Nations to intervene. The United Nations was a supranational organization formed after World War II, and it's a coalition of countries sanctioned to achieve international cooperation in solving international problems of an economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian character. And it was because of these motivations that the United Nations felt justified to intervene in the Israel-Palestine conflict, which had been going on before that. Okay, and the United Nations solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict was the partition plan. Because of the already existing Palestinian territory, the United Nations could not solely give Israelis a Jewish state within Palestine. And they had to acknowledge both territorial rights and religious significance of the capital of Jerusalem, which holds significance in both Islam and Judaism. Additionally, because of the closely religious and radical motivations of both Judaism and the Palestinians, it's hard for other countries involved, like United States and just other countries in the Middle East, to solely support one or the other, because both have somewhat less feasible results and reasons for wanting to occupy the territory. Now, some solutions for this ongoing conflict, which has been happening since World War II. There are two proposed solutions, the first of which is the one-state solution. And first, Israel's one-state solution would be to annex the rest of West Bank and Gaza, however, does not extend citizenship to the Palestinians, which would severely oppress the Palestinians and has caused vehement opposition among the Palestinians, which makes this a less feasible solution. There is another coinciding Palestinian one-state solution. However, given the unstable government and the radicalism that's going on in the Palestinian territories, it's ultimately less feasible than the Israeli one-state solution. The more democratic solution is also the two-state solution, which would keep both Israel and Palestine as separate states. However, it would reestablish the ethnic boundaries. As you can see, Israeli settlements have now encroached on most of West Bank and has severely shrunk the Gaza Strip in Palestine, so then those ethnic boundaries would be redrawn to create two new states of Palestine, or two new combined states of Palestine within the territory, remaining Jerusalem as an international neutral territory. And this is the most appealing option, the most appealing solution, given that it somewhat satisfies both sides. However, it is obvious that since Israel opinion is so radical that they cannot be truly satisfied, and compromise is necessary. And because compromise is necessary, it's why our group established the two-state solution as the most feasible and reasonable solution. And our two-state solution would include joint governments of the two Palestinian territories. Because there are certain Muslim sections and Christian sections, those sections would have independent state governments, but a joint federal government to ensure that there would be cooperation from both sides. And additionally, the Israeli government would continue as necessary. However, more inhabitants of the Israeli settlements would be necessary to ensure peace between these two conflicts. Some limitations, however, of this solution remain that the United Nations attempted a two-state solution and it has still continued the conflicts evident in the 2018 rocket launches and continued Jewish encroachment on Palestinian land.
Here's a recited version.
Thank you. Okay, Cole, what is the way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
So one way that our team resolution makes me think differently about mine is that although that we can create physical borders, such as border lines and a two-state solution to create a Palestinian and an Israeli state, the cultural bonds between these two different states will probably never be fixed due to the fact that all the years of fighting, it'll have to be like many different kinds of fixing in order to fix the cultural divide between these two states.
Thank you, Cole. Justin, give one specific way.
But Ms. Gonzalez, is that to me or?
Give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Bethany's findings.
Bethany talked about the ethical, the two-state solution. So I'm going to talk about her conclusion. So we included her conclusion, the two states. This changed my overall thinking because countries involved, it would have to be like the two-state solution makes me think differently about mine because how I asked myself what would happen with the countries, would they still continue to back Israel or would they continue to support Palestine as well?
Thank you, Kyle. Bethany, what is an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' IRRs that you decided to exclude from your team presentation and why?
Well, we didn't include necessarily a lot of the arguments from Jairo's essay solely because we included his historical perspective and his lens into the context. So a lot of his arguments and specific reasonings for the catalyst were not included in our actual presentation, but he did get to talk about his historical lens through the context of the Israel-Palestine conflict.
Thank you. And Jairo, describe an argument from one of your peers' IRRs that made you think differently about your team's solutions.
Really learning about Kyle's work he put in, to maybe realize that there's more of a global perspective to the whole situation, that it's not just the surrounding region. There's other bigger countries that could have bigger effects on the conflict.